All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Brandon!
I'm also an addict, and part of my story covers things other than alcohol, so bear with me on that. Um, I'd like to thank my sponsor for pushing me to do this, my group of people over there, and all of you guys who just came out to see me, whether you know me or not. It means a lot to me, so I'll get started with that. I grew up with two brothers and a really nice house from the outside. Brothers that I loved. We played games. We fought every day. I went to private school. Had a really, really nice upbringing. I had everything I wanted. We went on vacations. My dad took us camping, fishing, hunting. So I was a happy kid growing up. Went to Lutheran private schools, played a lot of sports. We were really good at sports, and there was a lot of expectations on us. As far as family life goes, I'd say there is a history of alcoholism. My grandpa was an undiagnosed alcoholic. My dad, an undiagnosed alcoholic. My family has a way of looking at it and kind of just breezing over it and not dealing with it and just willpowering it away. So that's kind of how I handled my problems growing up. I willed it away and never asked for help. I was 14 years old the first time I got drunk. I was with two buddies. It was Raspberry Burnett's, and it was a great time. I can honestly say I have not had Raspberry Burnett's since then. And I can't. I won't do it. I joined the wrestling team my very first year of high school, and I was a good wrestler. I was bigger than most kids, and January, halfway through the season, I ended up getting a shoulder surgery. I tore my shoulder, ended up in a surgery after the season. And I had to take off the rest of my sports for that year, but they ended up giving me handfuls of painkillers. And at 14, all I knew is that they made me feel good. I didn't know that it would lead me down a path that I didn't want to go down. But I enjoyed it. It took my mind off of being 14 in high school, not knowing how to fit in. All I knew is I could say what I wanted and not really care what people thought of me, and I liked that. Fast forward another year, I went right back to wrestling, got a little farther in the season, ended up tearing it again, and I was done with wrestling. Another surgery, another bag of pain pills, and I developed a habit really quickly, and it changed my mood. I depended on them. I had probably a 10 a day habit at 15 in high school, and I noticed tendencies that were not just casual like other kids. I got sad when I didn't have them. I missed them. I depended on them to be a certain person. But luckily, my fear of getting caught and my fear of being something different than a private school kid, a good, nice private school kid, I didn't seek them out. So that part of my story ends there when they ran out. Throughout high school, I casually drank. When I would drink, though, I would drink to excess. There was never a time when it was just, here's a beer here and there. And when we drank to black out. We drank to go all the way, to produce a feeling. And it was private school, so it was tough. And we couldn't always have those parties. So when we did, we had fun. But I didn't see a problem yet. I didn't see myself as an alcoholic, as a problem drinker. I had not used it for self-medication yet. That's later. Back at my home life, my dad was a private school teacher. He started out as a Detroit public school teacher for 25 years and moved to private school. If anybody knows, Detroit Public School teaching is not easy, and he took a lot of his stress home to us, and we got the brunt of a lot of it. And like I said, we had a great upbringing, but there was a 50-50 between a love and a hate between my dad. He was an alcoholic that did not get help, and a lot of nights I didn't really know how they were going to go, whether it was verbal or abusive. And I grew up kind of scared, not sure of myself, doubting myself a lot, never really sure how to make him happy. And I'm a codependent now as a part of that and part of a lot of other things. So finding alcohol and the way that made me feel, I was finally sure of myself. At these parties, it was an escape to be who I knew I always wanted to be. And then as my brothers went off to college, I didn't succeed as academically as they did. So I went to community college. I worked, but I was alone at home, and it bothered me. I mean, I'm a twin, so being with my twin, being with my brothers was normal for me. And I wanted to show my family that I was going to be something, and I didn't believe in myself a lot, so I thought I needed Adderall. And I convinced my parents to take me to the doctors, and I said all the right words. I knew exactly what to say to be an attention deficit disorder person. And I'm not. I don't have that. I'm an addict, and that made me feel good. And I got started taking Adderall, and Adderall kept me sharp. Adderall allowed me to do my schoolwork. It allowed me to be creative and focused. I had good ideas. I believed in myself, and people believed in me. I mean, with the energy level I had, I mean, you could not believe in me. I was motivated at all hours of the day, and I never slept, ever. Adderall worked for a time, and it kept me going, and it allowed me to get through community college, and I got accepted into Grand Valley State University, and I was really proud of that. I was willing to do whatever it took to get myself further in life, and Adderall had become like a staple for my success. I couldn't do without it. I didn't believe in myself off of it. Whether it was a matter of just buckling down and studying harder, I had to have Adderall, and I took that problem to Grand Valley with me. And so Adderall came with me to Grand Valley, and it was a whole new world for me. I'd never been on my own before. I'd always depended on my twin and my brothers, my family, and I was all alone up there with enough money to do what I wanted, nobody telling me what to do. And so I started off going to class, and within probably 2 weeks I had quit going to 3 of my 4 classes, and I was just basically kissing the whole semester goodbye. It didn't take much for me to give up on myself. The Adderall couldn't get me an A on the test, so I figured it was a loss, and I gave up. And it turned into me trying to find other ways to make me happy. I'd stay up all night trying to come up with business ideas, and I didn't sleep ever. The only way I would sleep would be to drink myself to sleep. And I don't think I slept for a whole 2 weeks in October of that semester. And I got put on academic probation that year. First accomplishment at GV. That's something you write home about. So I started off rocky, and I was pretty determined to pick it up. and started next semester with a new motivation, a new script of Adderall, and I was ready to go get them, and the same thing happened. Classes were tough. I quit believing in myself, and I stopped going to class. Flunked out. They sent me home. So I had the weight of another failure on my shoulders. I went home and didn't really have anything good to tell my parents. Started working odd jobs, and it became a cycle for me of of depression and 6-month jobs that I drank my way out of and fired from, or I left. I couldn't handle it. That went on for about 2 years. About 2 years for me of working meaningless jobs and getting nowhere in life, just enough to pay a little car bill. In that time, I managed to abuse Adderall so much that I racked up debts with friends. I started stealing my mom's pills in order to function. I'd gotten past the high stage of alcohol and Adderall. They didn't make me feel good anymore. They just helped me survive. It was a daily affair. Every day was wake up, make sure if you had some Adderall, you take some. You got any alcohol, take it to function, because you're not going to make it to noon. I started getting far enough into the drinking that I was getting shakes. And so that became an all-day drinking habit, something I thought I'd never get to. The Adderall would make me pick at my skin. And I don't know if anybody's dealt with Adderall or not, but it's one thing that really bothers me and embarrasses me. I can jump around in my story a little bit, but when I was at Grand Valley, Adderall would make me not eat. I lost a lot of weight. I'd pick at my skin so much that I'd be just cut and bleeding, and I wouldn't leave my room for days. I'd eat protein shakes just to get by. And I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I felt. The idea of wanting to crawl out of your skin was a literal feeling for me. I didn't want to be anywhere with a mirror. I didn't want to see myself. I didn't like who I was. And the money ran out. Didn't have enough money for alcohol, and I was ready to go home. So the whole cycle of Adderall and alcohol together, I couldn't have one without the other. And it got so bad, I got my first DUI in January, about 2 years ago, I believe. 2 years ago, I got my first DUI, and they put me on probation. They put me on PBT probation, so I had my first encounter with AA then, because my parents didn't know what to do to help me. They had no idea what certain protocol an alcohol or an addict might need. Because in the past, everything was all about pretend you don't have a problem, like you'll get through it with your own willpower, and I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. Everything I did was extreme. So I went past that safety net that the rest of my family seemed to be able to use, and I got into AA, and I remember the first table I sat at, it was relieving. I saw people that I would never ever talk to. You people. Honestly, I saw these same faces, and I would never come up and talk to you. And I saw me in every single one of the people at that table, and I was so happy to tell my parents. I was like, they get me. I I feel so comfortable at these tables, and my parents wanted to cringe. They're like, this is bad because he fits in at AA. That's not good. I felt so right. Like, I couldn't tell my parents it because they didn't want to believe that I had a problem. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I wanted to keep going to these meetings. And I found myself getting a sponsor. He's sitting here, right there. And that was tough for me because I wanted help, but I wanted it to be easy. I wanted to text and I didn't want to call. I had to be accountable to somebody else. I never called anybody. If you called me, I usually let it ring and then I would text you, hey, what do you need? I don't have time for that. But he pushed me and he made me do things that were out of my comfort zone. Only problem was that I still hadn't given up my will. So there are people here tonight that saw my first round of sobriety. And I say sobriety because I thought if I don't drink, I'm sober. I can still use Adderall, weed, and pain pills, and that's sobriety. I'm not drinking. And I was all gung-ho, jacked up on Adderall, ready to lead a meeting. This is gonna be wild. I'm gonna be the best chairperson ever. And I can laugh about that today, but I felt really guilty being asked to chair meetings with a pocket full of pain pills and Adderall, and opening a meeting about how to not live a life like that and how to not have to do that. And I wasn't ready to give up that side of my life yet. I still wasn't okay with me, even around a bunch of people that said it's okay to feel like that. You won't feel like that for long. But I kept using, and I fought with my sponsor, and we struggled, and I couldn't figure out why I didn't get the program. And it's obvious now, and it's a no-brainer now, but when you're living two lives, you have AA in one hand and you got your vice in another hand. One of them was going to win. And for me, I struggled for another 9 months in that hell, that back and forth, that feeling that recovery at the meeting, and then going home and being like, well, we'll stop this tomorrow. And it eventually took down my will, my standards. I went back out, and like they say, it's just as bad as when you left it, and it was worse. I didn't make it more than 2 weeks out before I caught my second DUI, and I was aggressively going back out. There was nothing was learned, nothing was like taken in moderation. I was ready to drink, and I was ready to use, and I have an all or nothing mentality with anything I do. Like if I say I'm not gonna have pop and I take a sip, I will drink the 2 liter. I'll drink all of it just because that's the way I am and that's how my brain works. I'm an addict in that sense that I'll do everything 100% all or nothing to excess. So I got my second DUI, still on probation for the first one, and I was in a mess. I ended up losing contact with my sponsor. I wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. I wanted to do this on my own. I knew what I was doing, and I just wasn't ready to change it. And I had a case of I think I had a case of the fuckets for the next couple months leading through court. I drank at my court meetings. I was in a whole I don't care anymore phase. I had screwed up again, and I thought that was it. Like, just go out with a bang. Like, you're already screwed. Don't try to fix or save anything. So I drank consistently, and my parents didn't understand what was going on with me. They didn't understand how to help me. They thought I had a mental, like, illness. And I have a thinking disease that I've learned from this program, but not the way they thought it was. So they sent me to counselors and therapists, and I drank before I would go to those so I could hear what they had to say better. And they tried to get me set up on like antidepressants and psych medicines, and I abused and took more than I was supposed to of those. So they cut me off of that. You can't give me anything that will produce an effect. I will continue to use it more than you want me to. And this was 2 days, a couple days before drug court started. It was a program that I got lucky enough to get into. They didn't have a spot for me, but I got lucky enough to convince them that I had changed and that things were going to be different. And they let me into drug court, which allowed me to keep my license, kept me out of jail, allowed me to continue going to meetings, unincarcerated. And I had used 3 days before drug court started, not knowing that the evaluation required testing too. So I started off drug court pretty spectacularly. There were 2 dilutes, of which were my fault for trying to flush my system of whatever was in it. And then the drugs that I had taken showed up right after that. So they put me in jail for 18 days. And I spent, it felt like longer. I like to call it 30, but it was 18. I hated that place. I got in there and I felt like an animal. You have no value in jail, whether it's a day or a year. That's my bottom. That was my bottom. I got in there, and this was somewhere I thought I would never be. I was a private school kid. We don't go to jail. I go to church. I do good things. I was not supposed to go to jail, and I felt like the black sheep of the family. And when I got into my cell, it was creepy, because on it said, like, carved into the door by the handle, it said, "This too shall pass." And I immediately thought my sponsor had snuck into the jail. And I'm like, wait, no, they don't let that happen. This is real jail. And I was like, because he would do something like that, but this is real jail, and that doesn't go on. And I remember just never wanting to go through that again. So I was about halfway through jail, and my family had started to come see me. And I know they love me. They're just disappointed at what I've done. So they had a couple video chats with me. They were happy that I was doing well. And then another video chat popped up, and my parents had said they weren't going to come for a couple days, and I was like, okay, I guess they're going to come again and just surprise me. And it was 8:10 at night, and I'm sitting there in my jail smocks, and my sponsor's face pops up. We had not talked for months before this, and I didn't even know he knew where I was. And so, to reconnect through a jail screen with your sponsor was pretty humbling for me. and him asking me if I'm done, if I'm ready to be all in. I was done living recklessly, living it my way, not taking suggestions. Like that moment, that turning point, it saved my life. I'm used to people leaving, and I'm used to people not sticking around. So with me drifting away, that was just par for the course for what I do, and that was okay, because I'm the only one that has to deal with it. I just go, and my sponsor didn't. My sponsor found me in jail. He tracked me down, and I never felt so happy. I called him every day after that. I don't call people. I don't like calling people. But I wanted to. I wanted everything about what I had done before to be different. I hated the way my life was, and I was ready to do anything it took to live like they live, to be okay with who I am, to not have to drink, to not have to manufacture who I am, and be tied down to alcohol or a pill to be what I really want to be. And so after I got out of jail, I got set up at the 3/4 house, and that changed me. Being constantly surrounded by AA. I got out of my way. I was terrified to leave home. I was terrified to not know what came next. But I figured if I want this, if it's gonna work, I'm gonna do it. And so I took that leap. I joined the 3/4 house, and I've been taking suggestions lately. I can hold on to a job now. Before, I was terrified to make a resume because it was the longest resume of 6-month jobs. I'm like, we can just skip that. Let's just list the good ones. But my life is phenomenally different. I have a relationship with my family now. They trust me. They don't trust me all the way. That's going to take some time. I pay my bills. I don't borrow. If I need to, I have the courage to ask for help now. That's something I never did. I would hide my problems until it all blew up and somebody else had to take care of it. I work a program that I'm okay with and that I'm proud of. I wasn't okay with my program before. My program tore me apart last year. For once in my life, I like who I am. Like, I'm okay with me. I might be slower at times, and things might not fire as fast as that. But that's okay. Because I'm learning how to have that. Like, you guys have taught me how to love myself again, how it all takes time and patience, and it's sustainable. There's no crash from AA. If you crash, there's 7 people, 8 people, there's a whole table of people there to pick you up. I've never felt so welcome in a group of people. And I don't know, I have so much I owe back to AA, and I've lived my life pretty selfishly in the past, and I have a chance now. I have a chance now to give back to people. I got asked to be a house monitor. They trust me to help lead people my age that are struggling with the program, struggling with sobriety. They deemed me worthy enough to help people. and all I'm used to doing is taking. And that was huge for me. I have so much good coming back to me. Things I'm doing now that I only dreamt of doing. And I owe it all to this program. So, thank you guys.